The maid young pushed him away, until the billionaire wiped her tears and whispered, "I'll be gentle." Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main character. The soft hum of the penthouse at night sounded nothing like the world Mia Carter belonged to. Here, everything glowed, marble floors catching the city lights, glass walls stretching from floor to ceiling, and the quiet that only wealth could buy. And yet, in the middle of all that luxury, Mia stood frozen, fingers trembling around the strap of her cleaning tote. She had only meant to deliver fresh linens. Nothing more. Nothing that would change her life. But then Alexander Hale, yes, that Alexander Hale, the billionaire who rarely spoke above a measured whisper, looked up from the leather dossier on the table and said her name like it mattered. Mia. Just that. Soft, but so steady it made her pulse stumble. She wasn't supposed to look him in the eye, but tonight she accidentally did. And that was when she saw it, not power, not arrogance, but something quieter, something calculating in a way that made her uneasy. He gestured to the chair across from him. Sit. She shook her head immediately. Sir, I really can't. My shift ends in 10 minutes and I still have the north wing in, Mia. His tone gentled, but the weight of it filled the room. Please. Sit. Against every instinct that told her rich men and their problems were none of her business, she lowered herself onto the edge of the chair. Keeping distance. Keeping boundaries. Keeping her heart far, far away. Then he slid a folder toward her. A contract. Thick. Heavy. Unreal. I need a fiancé, he said, as calmly as someone ordering coffee. Mia blinked, sure she misheard. A what? Temporary. 30 days. Public appearances only. He watched her carefully, almost clinically, as if measuring each breath she took. In exchange. I'll pay every medical bill your mother has. Past and future. Her breath caught. Not because of the offer, but because he knew. He shouldn't have known. She had worked so hard to hide her life, her struggles, the reason she took double shifts and slept only 4 hours some nights. She pushed the folder back toward him, too quickly, almost knocking it off the table. No. I'm just a maid, Mr. Hale. I don't belong in your world, and I don't want to pretend I do. She stood, ready to flee, ready to breathe air that didn't taste like danger wrapped in kindness. But his voice stopped her. Mia. And this time, there was something fragile beneath it, something she didn't expect from a man whose signature could shift entire markets. She didn't turn around. Couldn't. Because she already felt the walls closing in on her small life, her small paycheck, her small hopes. And she knew, somehow, without him saying another word, that this was only the beginning of the mistake fate had written for them both. For a moment Mia stood completely still, the quiet of the penthouse pressing around her like a thick winter coat she had never asked to wear. She had turned away from Alexander Hale in part 1, but walking toward the elevator now felt like her shoes were sinking into something heavier than the marble floor. She pressed the button, hoping it would open fast enough to spare her from thinking about what he had offered. But the truth followed her in silence, step for step. Her mother's prescriptions. The overdue rent notice taped to their apartment door. The way the clinic receptionist had looked at her that morning with gentle pity and said, "Insurance does not cover that procedure." Mia swallowed hard and the elevator remained stubbornly still. Behind her she heard his footsteps, soft but unmistakable, the assured stride of someone raised in a world that always opened its doors for him. "You are worried," Alexander said quietly. Not accusing. Not demanding. Just stating a truth she hated him for seeing. She shook her head. No. I am fine. It was a lie so thin it could barely stand. Alexander exhaled in a way she had never heard from him before, something almost human, almost vulnerable. Mia, I know this is overwhelming. But I am not asking you to change who you are. I am asking you to help me navigate a situation that requires a gentle touch. She turned slightly, just enough to see him in her peripheral vision. His expression was unreadable, but his posture had softened. Less CEO. More man. Why me? She whispered. It slipped out before she could stop it. Out of all the women in this city who would gladly say yes, why choose someone who would absolutely say no? Alexander's jaw tightened a fraction, not with irritation, but with something that resembled honesty. Because you have never asked me for anything, he said. Not once. You do your work, you look me in the eye when most people do not, and you have a steadiness that the people in my circle pretend to have. I need someone who will not crumble under attention. Someone who sees through noise. Someone real. Real. The word landed inside her chest with an ache she did not want to feel. The elevator doors finally opened with a soft chime. Freedom just a single step away. But Mia did not move. She kept her hand on the strap of her tote, gripping it like it could anchor her to the life she understood. This would not be real, she said slowly, carefully, because naming the truth helped her keep distance. This would be a performance. Alexander nodded once. Yes. But I would never ask you to perform anything that compromises your dignity. She almost believed him. Almost. The city stretched behind him through the glass wall, towers glittering like promises that were never meant for people like her. She thought of her mother's hands trembling when lifting a cup of water. She thought of the stack of bills hidden in a kitchen drawer. And she thought of how 30 days could change everything. Or break everything. I cannot give you an answer tonight, Mia said softly, stepping into the elevator. I need to think. Alexander did not stop her this time. He simply held her gaze for one long, searching moment. Take all the time you need, he said. But as the doors slid shut between them, Mia felt the truth settle in her bones. Time was the one thing she did not have. Morning came too early for Mia, the kind of morning where sleep never truly settled and thoughts kept circling like restless birds. She sat at the small kitchen table of her apartment, the surface covered with medical bills, rent reminders, and a half-empty bottle of vitamins she always encouraged her mother to take even when she could not afford replacements. Her mother shuffled out of the bedroom, leaning lightly on the doorframe. You came home late, her mother said softly. Another double shift. Mia forced a smile as she rushed to help her into a chair. Just a busy night, Mom. The lie tasted familiar. Her mother studied her with gentle suspicion, the kind that came from years of reading her daughter's emotions better than anyone else. You look troubled. Mia opened her mouth, then closed it. How was she supposed to explain something that sounded impossible even in her own mind? Her mother reached for her hand. Whatever it is, you will figure it out. You always do. But Mia knew not everything could be figured out. Some decisions felt like cliffs disguised as doorways. When she finally stepped outside to catch the bus, the city air felt colder than usual, brushing her cheeks with a reminder that time was moving whether she was ready or not. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A message from an unknown number. Mia. This is Alexander. Did you sleep at all? Her breath caught. She had not expected him to reach out. She considered ignoring it, but her fingers moved before her mind could intervene. I am thinking, she typed. 3 seconds passed. Then 4. Then his response, let me make it easier. I will arrange transportation to bring your mother to her appointments. No cost to you. No conditions attached. Mia stared at the screen, stunned. People like him did not offer help without strings. But he had written, very clearly, no conditions. As if he sensed she would refuse anything that resembled manipulation. Still, she texted back carefully. "Why would you do that?" His reply came quickly. "Because I can. And because your mother should not suffer for a decision that is yours to make." The bus pulled up. She boarded, clutching the phone as if it weighed more than her tote. All morning at the hotel where she worked part-time, she moved on autopilot. Polishing silverware. Folding towels. Replacing toiletries. Her co-worker Jenna noticed. "You look like you are having an existential crisis," Jenna whispered while stacking fresh linens. Mia huffed a quiet laugh. "Something like that." "Is it money?" Jenna asked gently. Mia hesitated. "It is. Always money." When lunch break came, Mia walked outside to find a sleek black car parked along the curb. A driver stepped out and opened the back door. "Miss Carter," he said with a polite nod, "Mr. Hale asked me to deliver this to you." He held out a sealed envelope. Not thick like the contract, just a single sheet of paper inside. Mia opened it. A printed schedule of medical appointments for her mother, each one labeled, "Paid." Her chest tightened with something sharp and complicated. Gratitude. Fear. Hope. Doubt. A swirl she could not untangle. At the bottom of the page, one handwritten line from Alexander: "Make choices from strength, not desperation." She folded the paper slowly, pressing it to her chest for a brief second before tucking it away. Later, on the bus ride home, her reflection in the window looked almost like a stranger. A woman standing at the edge of a decision that could rewrite every part of her life. And even though she still had not said yes, Mia realized something had already shifted. The question was no longer whether she would enter Alexander Hale's world. It was whether she could afford not to. The decision settled inside Mia slowly, like a tide rising without waves. By the next morning, she was standing outside the glass tower where Alexander Hale kept his private office, clutching the strap of her tote so tightly that her fingers tingled. She had slept maybe 2 hours, replaying his words, her mother's tired smile, and the overwhelming truth that her life had reached a point where courage and survival felt almost identical. When the elevator doors opened onto the top floor, a receptionist with perfect posture looked up from her desk. "Miss Carter. Mr. Hale is expecting you." Hearing her name spoken that way felt strange, almost like she was stepping into a version of herself that did not exist yet. The receptionist guided her to a conference room with a long glass table. Morning light poured in through the panoramic windows, draping everything in a soft glow. Alexander stood near the far end, reviewing documents. He looked different in daylight, less untouchable, more like a man trying to keep several worlds balanced at once. When he turned and saw her, the faintest shift crossed his expression, a small break in the armor he usually wore. "You came." Mia nodded, unsure whether her voice would work if she tried speaking. He gestured to a seat and slid a folder toward her. This one was thinner, simpler, not a trap disguised as a legal maze. "I revised the terms," he said. 3 non-negotiable conditions for me. 3 for you. Clear. Respectful." Her eyes scanned the page. His conditions were surprisingly gentle: she would attend 5 events, she would not be asked to act beyond what she was comfortable with, and her mother's care would be handled discreetly but transparently. Her conditions were equally clear: no sharing a room, no physical expectations, and absolute honesty at all times. When she looked up, Alexander was watching her with a patience she did not expect. "If any part of this feels wrong," he said quietly, "you walk away. No consequences, no persuasion." Mia took a breath, steady and long. "Why are you doing this?" Alexander hesitated before answering. "My company is finalizing a partnership that depends heavily on public trust. There are people who want to exploit my personal life to create chaos. I need stability, Mia. And you do not pretend. That makes you the most stable person I know." Her heartbeat thudded softly in her ears. She had never imagined someone like him would see value in someone like her. But here he was, speaking as if her integrity was a currency he trusted more than money. She picked up the pen. For a moment her hand hovered. 30 days. 30 days pretending to be someone she was not. 30 days in a world she had only ever cleaned from the outside. But then she pictured her mother's face, hopeful for the first time in months. That was all it took. She signed. Relief and something quieter, almost fragile, passed over Alexander's features. He reached for the paperwork, but his voice softened first. "Thank you, Mia." The gratitude in his tone did not sound rehearsed. It sounded real enough to unsteady her. "When do we start?" she asked, steadying her tote with both hands. Alexander checked his watch. "Now. You have a fitting in 40 minutes and a media workshop in 90. Today is your first lesson in stepping into this role." Her breath hitched. "A lesson?" His eyes held hers with calm certainty. "Do not worry. I will guide you through every part of this." As he opened the door for her, Mia realized something unexpected. She was not afraid of failing the role. She was afraid of how easily he made her believe she could succeed. The transformation began the moment Mia stepped into the private styling suite Alexander had arranged. Soft lighting glowed against mirrored walls, and rows of dresses in shades she had only ever seen on magazine covers hung like quiet promises. A stylist named Laurel greeted her with a warm smile, the kind that put Mia slightly at ease despite the surrealness of it all. "You must be Mia," Laurel said, circling her gently, assessing without judgment. "We have a gala tonight. Nothing too extravagant, but polished. Soft colors will complement your features." Mia nodded, unsure what to say. Every part of this world felt too delicate to touch, like she would leave fingerprints on things she did not have the right to handle. While Laurel moved with practiced ease, adjusting hems and choosing accessories, Mia kept thinking about Alexander's words, "I will guide you through every part of this." She had not expected him to mean it literally, but an hour later he arrived at the suite, dressed in a charcoal suit that looked impossibly sharp against his calm demeanor. When their eyes met in the mirror, Mia startled slightly. He looked at her differently than before, his gaze softening almost imperceptibly. "You look," he began, stopping as if choosing the next word very carefully. "Prepared. Prepared. Not beautiful. Not breathtaking. Prepared." A word that honored effort rather than appearance. A word that steadied her. Laurel stepped back. "She is a natural. With a little confidence, she will be perfect for the cameras." Cameras. Mia's stomach fluttered. She had almost forgotten the media workshop that followed. In a small studio room downstairs, a communications coach walked her through posture, eye contact, and answers to harmless questions reporters might ask. "Smile gently. Keep shoulders relaxed. Look at him as if you trust him," the coach instructed. Mia tried. She truly tried. But when Alexander stood beside her to run a mock interview, her nerve sparked. Her smile was too tight. Her posture too stiff. At one point she accidentally called him, "Sir," and the coach's eyebrows shot up. Alexander only smiled faintly, a reassuring calm that helped her keep breathing. Again, he murmured softly, "We will get there." They repeated the practice until the coach finally nodded in approval. By late afternoon, Mia's head felt full. Dresses, interviews, expectations, roles, and a version of herself she barely recognized all blended into a single overwhelming blur. The car ride to the gala venue was quiet. Not tense, but thoughtful. The city skyline stretched before them, lights flickering like restless stars. Mia fiddled with the clasp on her borrowed clutch. "What if I embarrass you?" she asked finally. Alexander turned to her, expression steady. "You will not. You sound very certain," she murmured. I am, he replied, voice calm but weighted with sincerity. Because I did not choose you for perfection. I chose you for truth. People can feel when someone is genuine, Mia. That is your strength. Her breath softened. She looked down at her hands, resting in her lap, trying to steady the tiny tremor she felt. When they stepped out of the car and the first flash of a camera lit the sidewalk, Mia instinctively moved back a step. Alexander extended his hand, not insisting, not guiding, just offering. Take it only if you want to, he said quietly. The choice was hers. And for the first time since agreeing to this arrangement, Mia felt a spark of control return to her chest. She placed her hand gently in his, and the crowd before them seemed just a little less overwhelming. The moment Mia stepped onto the gala carpet, the world erupted into soft flashes and murmured excitement. Cameras blinked like scattered fireflies, catching every tilt of her chin, every uncertain breath she drew. She held Alexander's hand lightly, not gripping, simply resting there, exactly as the coach had told her. But what steadied her was not the coaching. It was the quiet assurance in the way Alexander walked beside her, matching her pace, adjusting to her hesitation without making it noticeable. Inside the ballroom, gold chandeliers glittered overhead, washing everything in warm light. The air hummed with classical music and careful conversations. Mia had only seen rooms like this through the open doors she cleaned around. Never from the center. She stayed close to Alexander, keeping her posture open, her smile gentle. Everything went smoothly until a board member's wife approached with a tone made of sugar and cold edges. So you are the woman Alexander has been hiding, she said, eyes scanning Mia's dress as if measuring its price. What a surprise. Mia managed a polite smile. It is nice to meet you. Tell me, the woman continued, what exactly do you do? Modeling? Public relations? Mia felt her pulse spike. Before she could answer, Alexander stepped in smoothly. Mia is someone I trust, he said, with a warmth that startled both women. That is all you need to know. The board member's wife blinked, taken aback. She forced a small laugh and excused herself. When she left, Mia released the breath she had been holding. You did not have to do that, she whispered. Yes, Alexander replied quietly, I did. For the next hour, Mia followed him from conversation to conversation, answering politely when spoken to, listening when unsure, and growing steadier each time Alexander glanced at her with subtle approval. Yet even with his guidance, the weight of pretending began to settle on her shoulders. Halfway through the evening, she excused herself to the balcony, stepping into the cool night air. City lights shimmered below like distant constellations. She leaned on the railing, finally letting her breath shake. She felt like an imposter in borrowed elegance, someone standing in a dream she did not belong to. The door opened behind her. She expected a guest, perhaps another curious stranger. But it was Alexander. He stepped beside her, not too close, just enough that his presence felt steadying. You handled everything well, he said. Mia shook her head, her voice tight. I almost fell apart out there. But you did not. His tone was gentle, not dismissive. She swallowed hard. Alexander, this world is too much. I keep thinking people will notice I do not belong. That I am just a maid pretending to be someone she is not. He studied her for a moment, the city lights reflecting in his eyes. You keep saying that word as if it defines your value. It does not. She looked away, her throat thickening. Maybe not to you. But to everyone else, her voice cracked, and she pressed a hand against her cheek, trying to hide the tears that threatened. But Alexander noticed. His expression softened instantly. He reached out, slow enough that she could move away if she wanted. She did not. With the lightest touch, he brushed away a tear that had escaped down her cheek. Mia, he said quietly, you are here because you earn trust, not because of a contract. Nothing about you is pretend. His words landed with a warmth that traveled through her chest, loosening something she had been gripping for too long. She exhaled shakily, unable to speak. Alexander's voice dropped to a soft reassurance. Breathe. You are doing more than enough. And for the first time since the arrangement began, Mia felt something unfamiliar. She felt seen. The soft night air lingered around them on the balcony, but the world inside the gala had shifted. People had begun whispering, glancing toward the empty doorway that Mia and Alexander had disappeared through. It did not take long for rumors to spark in a room full of people who thrived on assumptions. When Mia and Alexander stepped back into the ballroom, everything looked the same, yet felt heavier. Conversations quieted as they walked by, replaced by faint, lingering stares. Mia tried to keep her expression steady, but she could feel it, the subtle shift, the silent judgment she had sensed from the beginning but had hoped she imagined. A board member's assistant approached Alexander, leaning in to whisper something discreetly. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. We need to step aside for a moment, he said gently to Mia. She nodded and followed him to a quieter corner near the floral displays. What happened? She asked softly. Alexander hesitated, choosing his words with care. Someone leaked details about our partnership announcement. Reporters are already questioning things that should not be public. Mia frowned. Is that related to us? His silence was the answer. She felt her stomach drop. Alexander, you said this would be manageable. You said I would not get in the way. You are not in the way, he replied quickly. But someone is using this situation to undermine me. His reassurance should have helped, but the weight of misunderstanding still pressed against her ribs. People think I am pretending to be something I am not, she whispered. They think I am here for the wrong reasons. Alexander stepped closer, voice low. Mia, look at me. She lifted her eyes reluctantly. You are not responsible for other people's judgment. But I am the easiest target, she said quietly. A maid who suddenly appears on your arm. They will not blame you. They will blame me. Alexander opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, a familiar figure approached, his former fiancée, Sabrina. Her presence carried the kind of calculated confidence that made Mia's shoulders tense immediately. Alexander, Sabrina said smoothly, her gaze flicking toward Mia with polished curiosity. I see you brought your companion. Mia lowered her eyes, trying to maintain the posture she had practiced, but the sting of Sabrina's tone cut deeper than she expected. Sabrina, now is not the time, Alexander replied. Oh, but it seems exactly like the time, Sabrina said with a small, cool smile. Reporters are circling. Investors are anxious. And here you are, tenderly mentoring your new project. The word landed with a sharp edge. Project. As if Mia were a temporary experiment rather than a person. Heat filled Mia's chest, embarrassment, anger, and something achingly close to humiliation. She looked away, trying to steady her breath. Alexander's voice deepened. That is enough. Is it? Sabrina asked softly. Or are you simply upset someone said out loud what everyone else is thinking? Mia felt the pressure building in her throat, the same pressure that had driven her to the balcony earlier. This time she did not have the night air to hide in. Excuse me, she whispered, stepping back before either of them could stop her. Alexander reached out slightly, but she shook her head. She needed space. She needed air. She needed to protect the tiny shred of dignity she had managed to hold on to tonight. As Mia slipped out a side door into a quieter hallway, her heart beat with a truth she could no longer ignore. No matter how carefully she walked, no matter how gracefully she learned to speak or smile or stand beside him, she would always be the one people questioned first. And for the first time since signing the contract, Mia wondered whether the role she had agreed to play was slowly unraveling the parts of herself she had worked so hard to preserve. The hallway outside the ballroom was quiet, the kind of quiet that made Mia feel both exposed and invisible at the same time. She walked until the music became nothing more than a distant hum behind the heavy doors. Her breath trembled as she leaned against the cool marble wall, fingertips pressed to her temples. For the first time since stepping into Alexander's world, doubt did not just whisper. It pressed firmly against her ribs, asking whether she had made a mistake she could not undo. Footsteps approached, soft, but certain. She closed her eyes for a moment, already knowing it was him. Alexander stopped a few feet away, giving her space, his voice low. "Mia, please look at me." She turned slowly, her eyes still glassy with frustrated tears she fought to contain. "I told you I could handle this," she whispered. "I really believed I could. But tonight, I felt like everyone was waiting for me to fail." Alexander's expression shifted with a kind of quiet ache. "You did not fail. It does not matter what you think," she said gently, not out of anger, but out of exhaustion. "It matters what the world sees. And the world sees a maid pretending to fit somewhere she does not belong." He stepped closer, careful and slow, studying her face. "They see a woman strong enough to stand beside me, even when she did not ask for this spotlight." She let out a shaky breath. "I did not ask for any of this," she said, voice cracking slightly. "I just wanted to help my mother and stay out of the way. But this feels like losing pieces of myself just to make it through the night." Alexander's brows softened, worry flickering through him. "If being in this arrangement is hurting you, then I need to make it right." She shook her head lightly. "You cannot fix how people look at me." "No," he agreed softly, "but I can show them who you really are." He reached into his jacket and held out a small card, not flashy or dramatic, just simple and deliberate. "This is the name of the firm handling the leaked information," he said. "I had them investigate quietly." Mia's heart paused. "You think someone targeted me on purpose?" "Someone targeted us," he corrected. "But yes, the timing and the tone were too calculated to be random gossip." Mia felt the sting of that truth. It was not comforting, but it made everything feel less like a personal failure and more like a storm she had been caught in without warning. "You should have told me earlier," she whispered. "I did not want to burden you already," he admitted. "But protecting you is not a burden. It is my responsibility." A tear slipped down her cheek before she could stop it. Alexander's hand lifted, slow and gentle, giving her every chance to pull away. She did not. His thumb brushed the tear with the same tenderness he had shown on the balcony. "Mia," he said quietly, "you are not losing yourself. You are being tested by people who fear what they cannot control. Do not let them decide who you are." Something inside her steadied, not completely, but enough for her to breathe again. "What happens now?" she asked softly. "Now," Alexander said, voice calm but certain, "you come back inside with me. Not because a contract says so, but because you decide you deserve to stand wherever you choose." And for the first time tonight, she believed him. The doors to the ballroom opened again, and this time Mia stepped through them not as someone hiding behind borrowed elegance, but as someone reclaiming her breath. Alexander walked beside her, matching her pace, not leading her, not guiding her, simply staying with her. The whispers returned when guests noticed their reappearance, soft enough to pretend they were not meant to be heard, sharp enough to remind her they were. But something in her had shifted. She no longer felt like she was walking into judgment. She felt like she was walking into clarity. A string quartet played in the background, warm and steady, grounding her as she stood taller. Alexander leaned in slightly. "If you want to leave, say the word." She shook her head. "No. I want to finish this." He nodded, a subtle flicker of admiration in his eyes. As they made their way through the crowd, a few guests approached out of politeness rather than curiosity this time. Mia answered softly, calmly, without the tremor she had earlier. She realized in a quiet, almost startling way that the pressure had not disappeared, she had simply stopped letting it define her. A board member approached with an apologetic expression. Mr. Hale, Miss Carter, earlier comments were out of line. The evening has been tense for everyone. Please accept my apologies. Mia blinked, surprised. Alexander glanced toward her, letting her choose how to respond. Thank you, she said gently. That means a lot. It felt like a small victory, one she had earned by returning rather than disappearing. And then Sabrina approached again, though this time her posture was less confident. She hesitated before speaking. Mia, about earlier. I may have been unfair. The situation is complicated, and I reacted poorly. Mia studied her for a moment. It was not exactly an apology, but it was something. I understand, Mia replied softly. Tonight has been complicated for many people. Something passed between them, an acknowledgement, quiet and temporary, but real. After the gala concluded, Alexander escorted Mia outside where the air was cool and the valet lights shimmered across the pavement. The city felt softer now, as if it too had exhaled. You handled everything with grace, Alexander said, opening the car door for her. She smiled faintly. I handled it. Grace might be too generous. No, he said, and there was no hesitation in his voice. You were extraordinary. As they sat in the back of the car, the city passing in streaks of gold through the windows, Mia let her head rest gently against the seat. For the first time in days, she did not feel like she was drowning in expectations. She felt grounded. Present. Herself. Alexander, she said softly, turning toward him, I meant what I said earlier. I do not know if I belong in your world. He held her gaze, his expression steady and sincere. Then let us build a place where you do. Her breath caught, not because of romance or grand gestures, but because it was the most honest thing he had said all night. Not a promise. Not a performance. A possibility. A quiet doorway into something she had never allowed herself to imagine. As the car continued through the glowing city, Mia realized that the night had not broken her. It had revealed her. And maybe, just maybe, it had revealed something in him too.